turn it a little.
And by the way, Rinpoche's spirits are good. He absolutely,
Always happy.
like, really, like, loves watching me with them going, well, no, I don't think so. What about that? And then everybody's coming in and asking questions about Buddhism, right? Because there's a Buddhist monk there. And then they're like, well, what do you guys, this gentleman came in and said, I have 3 questions for you. You know, why are we here? Why is there so much suffering? And why is the world so degenerate? Right? It's like karma, 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 come here, you know, like but, you know, I got done explaining it and I didn't dummy it down. I said, well, we believe that our previous actions, our virtuous actions and our non-virtuous actions have this potential to create a result that's similar. And when we suffer, it's because previously in a previous life or in this life, we created non-virtue. And we're being thrown into these experiences again and again by our deeds that we do now in the future. And, you know, why do we suffer? It's because we did non-virtuous things. Why didn't you ask me, why are we happy? You know, everyone wants to know, why do we suffer? Well, why are we happy? Those are 2 things that have to have causes, right? Why don't you ask, why are we happy? So we think we're happy because we previously did virtue. And the world right now is so degenerate because Buddha in our world said that it would be. It goes through these phases where there's a lot more people who are experiencing the ripening results of their non-virtue and have behaviorally concordant results, right? That's what it's called. When you do killing all the time in a past life, then you are reborn and you like to kill or something, right? So you have these behaviorally concordant results as groups happening. And Buddha said that we'd have these waves of good times and bad times. And it was all because of everyone's behavior in the past. And he just looked at me like, well, but who made it? I said, well, if we say someone made it, then we have to say that they're not perfect and they're just like us because we're not perfect and we're suffering. So to experience something, and have a cause that made us experience it, that cause would have to have some of that too. So we say that that doesn't make any sense. And he was like really rooted in his own faith. And he just was stunned and said, I got to go think about some of this stuff. And he left. I never saw him again. But these are the things we get to still do. Rinpoche had 2 private meetings on Zoom with some various students last week, counseled them on some things. This is what we still do. So we have this moment today. We have right here, right now. We don't have to worry about, well, what's going to happen, right? 5 years ago, someone said he had 2 years to live. Like, you know, someone showed up there that was a social worker that had seen him years ago and couldn't believe that he was still around, you know, that because all the odds were supposedly against him. You know, I've been hearing that for a very long time. So we shouldn't, when we hear this news, dwell in, oh my God, this is it. But we shouldn't also stay in, this isn't it. It's kind of this middle road of reality about impermanence, right? The reality about what we study and learn about every day. Death will come. We don't know when. The only thing that can help us is Dharma. And Rinpoche taught that to me at a doctor's appointment, right? You know, we don't know when we're going to die. We have this human basis. The only thing that can help us is Dharma. The only thing that can practice Dharma is our mind. If our mind's out of our body, that's it. We don't know. Maybe we're a worm now. But right now, we can practice Dharma because of the mind, right? And that's what practice is. You know, our body are not as the hardware, right? The software is what's doing the practicing, the mind. You know, I think that's a great analogy. You know, the mind is, you know, you pull the software out, the hardware is just there, you know. It doesn't work. It doesn't do really anything, you know, and it can't create anything without the software, right, in a computer. Likewise, without that mind, you know, nothing can be created, nothing can be learned, nothing can be invested in. So I know I took a lot of time to speak about this, but it was like the most profound teaching I've had, I think, on impermanence and on the precious human basis. And those are usually the ones that actually affect me. And there's been a lot of them over the years, you know. I remember meeting Rinpoche within the first few months. He lived at the center, and him, like, there was this bee like dead on a flower, like half dead. It was like laying there, and he looked over at me. He was sitting at the window because he always used to like get ready to leave hours before we had to leave and sit by the window with his bag. So he was doing that to go somewhere, I don't remember where. And I sat down next to him, and there was like this flower with a bee on it, and there were 2 flowers in there. And he said, this bee is sick. Because he knew a little English by then, because we'd been going to doctors, said, be sick. Brian remembers those days. Rinpoche, be sick. You happy? No, yes. Rinpoche tried to speak English as much as he could back then. Like, that's all he wanted to do is use his English. So he looked at me and said to be sick. So then he takes the other flower that's in there and he dips it in the water. And I'm not mystical, Jeff. I'm just telling you something that happened. Dips it in the water. And then he does this weird, I don't know, something I don't know anything about, just Lama stuff. And then he slams it on this bee. And all of a sudden the bee starts like going blah, 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 blah. I'm watching this. I had good eyes then. I could see it. They were like 25-year-old eyes. And the bee's going blah, 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 blah. And Rinpoche looked at me with like the most intense look and said, now to be happy. And the bee flew away. So, okay, maybe it's dehydrated. There's a million scientific explanations. Maybe he was sleeping and we woke him up. I have no idea. I don't know my bees. But that's an experience that helped really strengthen my faith in who Rinpoche was. And that was very, very early on. And anytime I started to think something funny in the early days, like, because he used to be a little more hard on me, like, we got done with the Guru Puja one time. Like, we were alone in the center, sitting on the floor. That's when Rinpoche could get up and down and stuff, next to each other. And we did the Guru Puja, and I thought I nailed it. We got done with it. I had all this pride that we had just done it in Tibetan. I'd read the transliteration, but I was really psyched. And he looked over at me, and he just shook his head and made this like, he had bad smell look. He said, you really don't know anything about Tibetan language, do you? Didn't say another thing to me for like till the next day. So, when those times happened, I remembered the bee story, and remembered, well, all right, maybe he knows better, but sometimes it took days for me to like so I have some purification of the early days of my, well, what does he know? Like when you start to hear things that kind of contradict what you think, or contradict your own worldview, it starts to feel funny, right? And you start to, the ego, right, starts going, whoa, let me put up the ego fists, let me put up the grasping at true establishment fists. Let the the self-cherishing attitude is like whoosh, and then the grasping at things, at the I as being truly established is like reinforces the reason to cherish yourself and no one else, and it's when something is said to you different, or when, your pride is hurt a little, all that stuff just takes over, self-cherishing and grasping at I, and it doesn't allow for, anything to come in. It's like that pot that's overturned. You can't fill up because it's upside down, right? That's kind of what happens when the afflictions start to really push truth out. And as Buddhists, we just familiarize ourselves more and more with truth so that the afflictions start to lose their power, because they're like kind of BS, you like really know that the only thing that's going to bring another person yelling at me is me to yell back, right? If you meditate enough. So I better meditate on patience, because A, I created this with my karma. B, there's some connection that we have, right? And now they're going to suffer as an experience of it. And they're under the influence of their afflictions and karma. They're not just doing it to me, they're doing it because they have to. And I'm experiencing it because I have to, and when you start to believe that at its core, then you can make decisions that don't really always match with worldly reaction, right? Well, why didn't you say something, right? When they said that, why didn't you, you should have said that, you should have told them, that's what I really want to do, right? But if we start to study Dharma, some kind of wall comes up that says, look at this, be smarter. And that's from analysis. And that's why Geshe Lharampa in that last volume I've been just focusing on is just analyze. Studying stops when you're a Buddha. If you haven't read all of the texts and you haven't, exhausted all of the possibilities of your mind, there's still some. It's really a beautiful thing to understand and know also that, there's a lot to learn. And Lama Tsongkhapa says, learn what you can, then rest, then learn more, then rest, then learn more. It doesn't just say, just keep going crazy like a Westerner would want to, for like, I've got to do a 1 monther, we're going to do a 1 monther and we're going hard. We're going to learn everything. And then 11 months, we'll reflect, and then we're going to go hard. It's like, Rinpoche used to say every day, it's a river, and it's not like one with rapids. You know, it's just this I guess a stream is a better way to translate it. Just this gentle flowing stream, never stops, right? But it doesn't become rapids. It doesn't become very fast. It doesn't go very slow. It doesn't stop. And that's the way we should practice. Let's do the Heart Sutra. Papa Sheraji Barode Shimbi Nimbo Shuzo Jakagedo Bhagavati Prachaparamita Randeya Pekedo Jamden Dema Sheraji Barode Shimbi Nimbo Kombo Chico Digi Dagi Dizzy Duran Samo Ngawan Shejao Chuji Nandi Tingen Zila Nyomba Shuso Yandi Itse Shanti Samba Samba Temple Baba Chenrezig Wanchu Sheraji Barode Shimbo Samo Chupa Nila Namba Jantin Kumbo Ngapo Titala Ranshin J Toma Napo Dao. Hold on one second. Just give me one moment. I do this prayer, and then every time I go to our book to do it, I get confused. And I have this memorized, but I don't feel confident enough to just do it out of my mind. So I feel like I just have to look at our prayer book because I've never really, just give me one moment. And then we may just do it in English. Just give me one moment to see something. Okay. Baba Shiraji Barode Shimbi Nibo Shuso Jakagedo Bhagavati Prachaparamita Shrandeya Bukedo Jomden Dema Shiraji Barode Shimbi Nipo Pombo Chigo Digi Dagi Dupa Duji Na Jomden De Jopi Jago Pombi Rig Longi Gendun Chempo Dan Shanju Sembi Gendun Chempo Dan Dati Shushu Zedi Yitse Jomden De Samo Nawan Shejau Juji Nanandi Tingen Zila Nyomba Shuso Yande Yitse Shanju Semba Semba Chempo Baba Chenrezig Wanshu Sheraji Baro the Shimba Samo Chupa Nila Naba Dashin Pombong Apo Titala Ranjinse Dongpa Napa Dao Dene Sanji Jitu Sedan Demba Sharibu Shanju Semba Semba Chempo Baba Chenrezig Wan Shula Geche Meso Riji Bong Galala Sheraji Baro the Shimba Samo Chupa Chepa Tupa Deda Lava Chade Geche Me Badan Shanju Semba Semba Chempo Baba Chenrezig Wanshu Getsi Dandi Basharada di Bula de Geche Meso Sharebu Riji Bon Galala Sheraji Baro the Shimba Samo Chupa Chepa Tupa Deda Napa Shapa Shade Pombong Abo de Dajan Shinche Doma Napa Yanda Baja Sudao Zu Dombo Domani Zuzo Zule Domani Shemayano Tomani Legion Zushiano Dejan Duzo Wadan Dushetan Napa Sheba Nando Bao Sharebu de Dachu Tamje Domani de Seni Meba Majepa Magaba Drima Meba Drima Dandrawa Drawa Meba Gama Meba Sharebu Tetawana Domanila Zume Zorme Dushime Naba Sheba Me Mime Name Cheme Lume Ime Sume Drame Drime Rome Reja Me Chumeto Migi Kame Bene Iji Kame Iji Jamba Shebi Bale Yameto Maripa Sepa Mepa Negashi Megashi Sepi Bale Yameto Dushan Deshan Tudun Yawadan Gojan Wadan Gopadan Lame Yeshime Dopa Mema Dopa Yameto Sharibu Detawana Shanchu Semba Nandopa Maybe Sheribu Shiraji Baro the Shimbala Denshi Nadi Semla Jipa Mashin Drapa Metu Shinchi Lole Shintula Deni Yanale Devi Darshan Do some do Nambarshu Base Sanjay Tamche Jang Shiraji Baro the Shimbala Deni Lana Meba Yandapa Zobi Shanchu Dupa Zopa Sanjay So Deta Wena Shiraji Baro the Shimbinga Ripa Cheminga Lana Mepinga Menyamba Danyapenga Dunya Tamche Rapu Shewa Shipinga Metsumpena Dempa Shepa Shade Shiraji Baro the Shimbinga Mepa Teata On Gate Parasangati Bodhi Soha Sharibu Shanchu Semba Chempo Deta Shiraji Baro de Shimba Samo Lala Bajao, then they jumped in the Tingenzi de Le Shende, Shantu Semba Chempo, Papa Chenrezig Wanshu La Leso, Shishawa Jenny Leso, Rigi Bonde Darshan, no Rigi Bonde Darshan, Tadi Dudi Demba Shintu Shiraji Baro de Shimba Samo Laja Padre, Tishan Shipa Nanjan Jesu Yerango, jumped in the Ye Getsi Gatsi, Nesedan Demba Sharada di Ibudan, Shantu Semba Chempo, Papa Chenrezig Wanshu Dan Tanchidan, Dembi Dibi Kode Dada Lada Midan Lama Yidan Lisa Biji ten Yirande Jomden Deji Sumbala Nyompa Gala Jube Ne Jodamba Ne Nguje Du Junga Idu Dojen Druba Lama
yi bushinzi Nesung Gandrozo la Jatselo Agasamara Tashanara Samaraya Ves. Aga Samara Tashanara Samaraya Vedi Ata Ongate Kate Parakate Parasangati Porisoha Baba Gonja Sonji Gai Dembe Doji Shi Luka Doji Mepa Doji Shiwa Doji Dragi Bachi Metu Pishi Tanji Shedingo Yiso Agirin Doja Jeju Shiwa Dan Metu Nupe Jendan Jewa Dan Tumba Junjin Pun Son Son Joji Dashi De Jan Den Da De Le The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Yes, O Lama Damba Yinan Yugo Yala Yenze Junzenji Yela Zampe Tu Jeze Mala Zaye Yu Yawa I send forth this Shiv Mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Gam Niratayam. Sanjay. Sanjay what? Jananda Ye Jananda Yanjo Badu Danye Jazuji Dagi Jinye Jibe Sananye Rula Benji Zanye Jubaju Zanye Jananda Ye Jananda Yanjo Badu Danye Jazuji Dagi Jinye Jibe Sananye Rola Benji Zanye Dubajo Zanye Jadan Zanye Jananda Yanju Badu Danye Jazuji Dagi Jinye Jibe Zananje Rola Benji Zanye Dubajo. Okay, so I know we talked a lot in the beginning already, so I just had something that, pertaining to the Lamrim. We were talking about Lord Atisha and all of, the wonderful things that he did in terms of his scriptural learning and then his realizations of those scriptures and kind of how through like an intense amount of effort he was able to learn all those things and realize those things. So it helps us to kind of learn what the map, what the map of intensity may look like if we, decided that we definitely wanted to emerge from cyclic existence and had renunciation, what would that look like? You know, and we see these namtars in life stories, and we see what somebody who's wholly devoted to Dharma practice does. Somebody who wholly understands all of those preliminary things of, you know, life of leisure and opportunity, you know, guru devotion, leisure and opportunity, death and impermanence, and karma and its results, and, you know, going for refuge, and all of those preliminary things kind of forces them into the state of renunciation. And when we read these namtars, we see what that would look like. We see what somebody who had, you know, saturated their minds with the preliminary experiences of the small scope, and then realized the medium scope, which is the first step of realizing the medium scope is renunciation. So we see how these small scope practices that seem kind of boring and rudimentary produce this kind of being, produce this kind of mind that only wants to get out. And then what would that mind do? What would someone who possessed that mind do? So it just gives us a little bit of enthusiasm about the path, and also lets us know that it isn't something that we can just do a little, but as Tsongkhapa says, and as Rinpoche says, we should do what we can. And what we can should be like a river or a stream, always happening, without a break. And the more that we can find out how driving a car, I've listening to all Rinpoche's old teachings, he's just talking about, well, when we're driving in a car, we're driving to enlightenment. And we would imagine what that would look like. And what would we have to do if we stayed in this car until that happened? And is the road, you know, what is driving? What do you need to drive? You need a car, you need a road. Is driving truly established? You know, and talking about doing mantras, and just anytime you're seeing a suffering animal doing giving and taking, or anytime you see a dead animal on the side of the road doing the medicine Buddha mantra or blowing Tara mantras on them in your mind, right? You're not pulling the car over and, you know, unless it's a totally safe experience and you want to practice, right? I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying, like, he means while you're driving, you experience and see these things that will allow you to practice the Dharma if you're familiar with that. If you're familiar with the Dharma when you're at work, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it will influence your mind accordingly, and you'll be able to practice and get rid of those afflictions in the midst of it, right? Now, we all know that part of how afflictions occur are by, okay, so one fact that an affliction can occur is that it hasn't been purified, right? So if we still have an affliction, it can come up. And the next is that we haven't separated ourselves from the source of it. We haven't gotten far enough away from the source of it. So there's something in the teachings about, if we're so angry at someone, right? We don't stand next to them for the rest of, we separate ourselves and then maybe go back when we're able to deal with them rationally. But it's saying that if your afflictions are brewing and you stand right in the source of your affliction, right? What's making it brew, it's going to make it come up, right? So it's going to make it kind of reinforced in some sort of way. We'll have to look into a more grand teaching on that, but there's some idea that of this. So what I thought would be interesting to read is, and I promise that I do this, is so when Atisha went to Tibet after he'd done all these wonderful things to prepare him to be able to write the lamp for the path to enlightenment, to be able to give his concise description of how to become enlightened. And by then, Atisha had already spoken with Tara, had, you know, personal interactions with Tara, had, it says in a lot of the teachings, had realized the path of preparation, patience stage of the path of preparation. You'll see that in some of the teachings. That's like the moment before you become an Arya. It's like then you get to the last mundane state, and then you see emptiness. So there's a lot of teachings that said when he was traveling around, he had reached that level. And then others say he's an emanation, right? So it depends on who wrote it, maybe. You know, when we look at Guru devotion, of course. And it doesn't matter because he can't transfer those to us. What matters is that there was some level of realization clearly beyond what we had. And if we practice this Dharma, I assure you, you'll believe it. You know, you'll know that it's real if you familiarize yourself with it enough. And it's, you know, you could say it's brainwashing, but it kind of is. It's washing your brain of like the misconceptions that you've always had, you know, so the Dharma is washing those out and kind of putting ones in that are realistic. And you shouldn't just, you know, throw yourselves into some washing you don't know anything about. You should study and see, you know, what if it makes sense to wash it that way. And then once you decide it makes sense and you decide that that seems like truth, wash it, right? Wash it accordingly. So this is what, so when Atisha went to Tibet, of course, we had this grand sacrifice of Shanchu Wo, and I'm sorry, Geshe Wo, and his nephew as well, but the great sacrifice of the uncle, Geshe Wo, where he was in prison for being a Dharma propagator. And he wanted to get masters and pandits to come to Tibet because there was some miscommunication about Dharma in Tibet at the time. So there was a great sacrifice he made because they were going to free him if he stopped his efforts. Geshe Wo, his captor was going to free him if he stopped his efforts to propagate the Dharma. And the captor made some unreasonable demand that if you bring enough gold, the weight of your body, then I'll free you and you can go ahead and propagate the Dharma. But he knew it was an impossible task to get that much gold. So it was kind of a setup by his captor. So when his nephew showed up with as much gold as he could bring and it wasn't enough, his uncle said, don't bring any more gold. Take this gold to Atisha, make a travel to India and get this master we've heard about to teach, and I'll give my life for the Dharma. I've never, I've died so many times and I will definitely die in this lifetime. But to be able to give my life for the Dharma is something that I may have never done and may not be able to do again anytime soon. So he told his nephew to go get Atisha with the gold instead of trying to get more to save his life. So there was this great sacrifice made, and this was, part of the story that was told to Atisha that moved him so much, that someone gave their life for the Dharma to invite you, and if this is real, if you are who they say you are, you won't be able to deny this request, right? You out of compassion for the people of Tibet, you have to come. So this is the letter that the nephew wrote. It's kind of moving, so I'm going to do my best. I'm a little it's been a rough week, so I'm probably a little emotional as it stands, but I'm going to do my best. But this is a really wonderful letter. Rinpoche, the Shanchu Wo, the Yigi, Atisha, the Ketambi Yigi, Yabudue. Okay. In bygone days, so this is how he addresses Atisha. In bygone days, the three Dharma King patriarchs were able to establish the Buddhist teaching in this northern land of snow at the cost of hardships, too numerous to count. After the persecution carried out by Long Dharma, Buddhism was reestablished in Tibet by my own forefathers, the Dharma Kings of Nari, who ignored all concern for life or limb. Still, some individuals reject the Vinaya system based on their preference for the Mantrayana teachings, the Tantra teachings, while others reject the Tantra teachings because of their bias towards the Vinaya system. Thus, the Sutrayana and Mantra teachings are held to be opposite, as hot and cold, and as contradictory in some ways, and individuals follow any practice that they like. In particular, two teachers known as the red-robed Acharya and the blue-skirted one have propagated the practices of union and liberation to long-haired adherents to Tantra, because Buddhism to degenerate into and it is causing our Buddhism to degenerate into an extremely low state. Compassionate Lord, there's no need to teach us, your unruly Tibetan disciples, a Dharma that is extremely profound or supernatural. We have that, and it doesn't work. I beg you to nurture us with an instruction that reveals the cause and effect nature of karma. In particular, O Lord, I beseech you to hold us in your compassion by teaching a Dharma that you yourself have mastered, one that brings together all the conqueror's teachings of Sutra and Tantra along with their respective commentaries. Moreover, it should contain the complete and unerring path to be easy to practice and benefit everyone in Tibet. So this is the letter that's written that, now allows us to study Lamrim. And I think it's really beautiful. And then there were, and then it says, finally, the Lord was asked a series of specific questions, including this: is it a requirement to already have taken some form of the individual liberation vows associated with the active form of the enlightened mind? So do you have to So this question, what does that mean? Do you have to have one of the individual liberation vows to take a bodhisattva vow? That's the question he's asking. Do you have to have any among the 7 lifetime individual liberation vows to take a bodhisattva vow? So this is something that was confused. Can Buddhahood be achieved by either wisdom or skillful means alone? Can you do just wisdom? Or do you have to have method as well? Do you have to have the great compassion united with emptiness, the understanding of emptiness, or could you just have one or the other and it would transform into enlightenment? Can the Tantra teachings be imparted to a person who has not received an Abhisheka initiation? And then that is the rite that consecrates and empowers a disciple to practice the path of a particular deity. So if someone doesn't have the initiation, can you teach them how to do the practice? Basically is the question. Can the wisdom initiation be imparted in its actual form to a monk observing celibacy? So if someone's a monk or a nun, can they do the consort practice? Can they do that final initiation? Are they allowed to have a partner? Basically, that's what it's asking. Can a physical partner be used, and does that break their vows? So the answer is yes. Atisha can, it's right in the root text, like he addresses it right away, that a teacher has to give their vows back. You know, it's if they have a vow of celibacy, and it's not permitted. There's some differing views, but that's the view that we practice. Can a person who has not received the Vajra Acharya initiation perform the various tantric activities, right? Greatly blessed by these remarks, the Lord composed the Lamb for the path to enlightenment. And the opening thing says, to all the conquerors of the 3 times, their Dharma, the Sangha, I pay homage with great reverence. At the urging of my good disciple, Shanchu Wo, I shall set forth the lamp for the path to enlightenment. So now we have that little history, right? Shanchu Wo, invited Atisha because his uncle gave his life. Why does he call him a good disciple in the commentary? Because he asked good questions. Because he basically asked the questions to outline the purity of Dharma. Because he knew there was something wrong there. So he knew Atisha knew he must be a good disciple, because he asked good questions and knows there's something fishy in there. He knows, he can see there's something wrong with what's being passed on because his forefathers brought this clearer Dharma that seems to be being perverted. So it's really interesting when you look at the commentaries and the word commentaries and go back. I need to find this Gen Lamrim commentary that Rinpoche keeps referencing in the teaching, and it's vague. He says we think it's from Gen Lamrim and Amdo Lama. I think it was one of those things that happened in Buxa where there was some written kind of notes, and I don't know if we still have them. I'm not sure, but when Rinpoche explained this first stanza, I just recently read it a few weeks ago. To all the conquerors of the 3 times, their Dharma and the Sangha, I pay homage with great reverence. At the urging of my good disciple, Shanchu Wo, I shall illuminate the path. In the commentary Rinpoche gave, he said that not only is, going for refuge, of course, we see going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as an expression of worship. It's what it's called at the beginning of a text, expression of homage, expression of worship. But Rinpoche said within that, when we look at the outline of the Lamrim, we're also talking about the Lama, because the Lama is the manifestation of the Buddha. So here, this section is where Guru devotion is taught, because it's the first part of the Lamrim. So when Rinpoche's always been very careful. He doesn't really like teaching Guru devotion. He's always skimmed through it. But whenever I find him explaining it, I know it's an important point. Because he never likes talking about it. So this first stanza implicitly, when we look at it, is talking about Guru devotion. And when we look at the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her is the very root of the path. And then, so this is kind of where the Lamrim starts out with this expression of worship, that when we look at the Guru Puja, we say Namo Guru Be, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. That refuge contains, I take refuge in the Lama, So we say that we look at the Guru Puja and we look at it and we compare it to this commentary Rinpoche read, we would say that this first homage of the lamp is talking about the Guru devotion that we find initially in all of the Lamrim commentaries. So it's just a point of reference, because without a pure teacher, I'm so grateful. I just am. I said to some healthcare workers, and I really mean this, like, I said a few things that I really mean. One was like, what are you willing to do to care for him? And I said, if we could get some more time, I'm willing to give a body limb. You can have it right now. So do you understand what I'm willing to do to care for him? And I really mean that. And anything good about me is really a result of Rinpoche. And I don't say that like the source of all my good, like to try to be cute or poetic. I mean, I believe that to my core. And I can say 100%, Rinpoche had said before he has renunciation, I can say 100% I have Guru devotion. I've studied it. I know what it looks like when you realize it. And I have. And
I confirm.
It just shows me like how these teachings can saturate your mind and work. And I don't, it isn't in an unrealistic, spacey, God in front of me way. It's very realistic, conventional reality. And I'm able to see both of those things, a Buddha and a very sick old person at the same time. I don't see manifestation and visualization of a Sambhokaya. I'm not saying that. I just, in my mind, I can hold those two things simultaneously because of the Lamrim. And it doesn't move. It doesn't like start to get tired. It doesn't say, and it actually is now that it's so reinforced, forcing me into the other things very, very hard. So when it says the source of all my good, everything depends on the teacher. This realization, I feel like, I don't want to say realization, but I just want people to know, like, these things occur. Like when this occurs, like, it throws you into more. Like we say, it's cause and effect. It's not like this silly thing we say, or, well, it's obvious. It's something that is really occurring within me and, forcing me to look at leisure and opportunity and death and impermanence. And, what did I do today to make sure that I have less afflictions? And because that's what he did, and I'm starting to understand that that's what the Guru devotion is. It isn't this thing that please, fix me. It's you learn how they fix themselves, and then you start fixing yourself, and you believe it because you have faith in them. And that's really, I did please fix me for a lot of years and thought there was like something more, like I knew, but it's part of me, like, and now I really know that the way that Rinpoche is going to fix me is by me implementing what he's taught me, because he's given me the medicine. He's given us all the medicine. And the only way you believe it's medicine, I think, is by realizing the Guru devotion. We can say it with our mouths, but yeah. So I just encourage everyone to study the Lamrim, because if like a really kind of wild person who picked Rinpoche up in a 78 Oldsmobile Omega with like a blonde mohawk, right, and like lots of gauge earrings, I had already stopped, using drugs at that point, so I didn't pick him up in that state. But I was in a rock band, and I was definitely not, not so great at all. And then I, wasn't so great. And now I'm, I'm better. I'm still not so great, but I'm better, and better because of him, and better because of the great master, Khensur Rinpoche, his teacher, and Dzong Rinpoche, and Trijung Rinpoche, and Ling Rinpoche, and Abu, and all of his teachers. Better because of them. Better because of Lama Tsongkhapa, who we have a complete connection with, a direct lineage connection with. We can just start saying some names and get there pretty quickly, right? Better because of Atisha. We take an initiation every single month because of Atisha, Better because of the Indian masters that influenced Atisha and of Shakyamuni. And that's how we start to think about lineage. We become better. We get rid of our afflictions because of the kindness of all of those lamas. Our Lama becomes just that one lineage that just goes all the way back to Shakyamuni. And we know that their importance on us was the same importance that their Lama was to them. And that the reason that they're the way they are is because they just did what the Lama said. They practiced it. I would like to be able to be facing a lot of difficulty, you know, when these things are occurring. This is the test of my mind. When these things are occurring in the, you know, doctor's offices and testing and CAT scans, you know, Rinpoche is smiling and, you know, waving at everybody and laughing when he's not positioning himself properly. And I'm pacing back and forth, right? So how's my mind, right? How is my mind? Geshe Nikki said, you know, when the end is there, say Omani Pemi Hom, you know, where's your mind? You know, I don't even have a diagnosis to even worry about, right? And I'm making up all this stuff that's proven to be wrong each time, by the way. All these things I've had in my mind that this is probably that, but I'm not gonna, you know, we'll wait and see. Have all been wrong, right? So it's amazing to see how he reacts, and it's him. And if it was me happening to, I'd be like, you know, call in the, you know what I mean? Like I would be having a nervous breakdown because if obviously someone I care about, it's going through. That's not me. And as much as I'd like to say, you know, others' needs before my own, I still have this self-cherishing attitude and grasping. So my reaction is going to be even greater, right? If it was me, it was happening to. So I can kind of identify how I react to external things, how I really, you know, am going to react when I'm all alone at that kind of final state, you know, because that'll be the scariest thing I'll ever have to experience. It will, right? The separation from all of this stuff that we're just kind of around in and driving around, and you know, that's going to be the true test, and we can see if we're ready based on how we react to things that aren't anywhere near that significant. So I'm not being dark, you know, it's been a little dark. So if this was a little dark, I apologize, but I think it's also a little light. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful teaching to be able to see the Dharma, you know, like blossoming like a lotus in front of me, and just seeing like a worldly circumstance in front of me that's terrifying, and seeing somebody just smiling. And Rinpoche, like they're all, every time we go to a doctor, they say, you know, he's glowing. He doesn't have bad color. You know, he's like radiant. He smiles with this big smile, and then he just goes and shuts off, you know, but like he isn't, you know, he's just radiant. And others who have nothing to do with the Dharma can see that. He's really affected a lot of people throughout the time. Somebody we saw recently remembers him when they worked at the firehouse downtown Middletown, and he used to walk around in just a tank top and his lower robe and a pair of sandals and a winter hat, and there was snowing out. He was like, I remember him walking. He would go talk with everybody, because Rinpoche would befriend anyone on the street, right? Back when he loved his English, right? He would, you know, and I drive, because I was around Middletown, I drive by to go see him, and I'd see him on a park bench with like people drinking. And I, what is he doing, you know? You know, and he'd say, oh, you know, they're very nice, you know. And then when I go for a walk with him on Main Street, all these people would be like, Rinpoche, you know, and it would be like very funny. And then I went to get Indian food, and they said, he comes here every day, and I give him chai. And I'm thinking, all right, now it's all, the diabetes is adding up. So anyway, anybody have any questions? That's enough with all of that. But I want everyone to leave this with hope and reality, you know, hope about our practice, hope about the Dharma being so real, and then reality that, you know, we should do what we can and face Rinpoche while we can, you know, if we have an opportunity to, because, you know, I don't live in, you know, we have all this time anymore. I live in right now, and I'm fully prepared for right now to be not right now, right? As I say, we'll see, you know, but, you know, I've been meditating on that, familiarizing myself, you know, with impermanence, not about him, but impermanence. So hopefully I know what that means, because that means it about everything, right? It'd be stupid not to, you know, I don't get to shake hands with Buddha Shakyamuni. So anybody have any questions? Yeah. And I'll let folks know, needs are getting higher, obviously. I'll let folks know. what we need. We may need to have a slight fund just for supplies. Things just come up, all the time. We need like linens and stuff. So we'll see, as we know what they are, we'll figure out how to get them. I know they aren't $1 million needs. By the way, Charlie's Closet, if you're ever making donations to anyone in the world, Charlie, we have to make $100 donation through the center to Charlie's Closet. We got a Hoyer lift for Rinpoche for $1, and we promised a $100 donation later. I forgot about this news. This enables us to be safe all the time here. It's a very expensive lift. Someone donated it to them when someone passed. We'll obviously continue that process, but we said we'd make a $100 donation. Medicare, Medicaid for about 2 months has been jerking us around on wheelchairs. We can't get this one, supply chain. If you pay $200 extra, you can have, just this whole circle, and the community health center is the most inept organization on the face of the earth. And if anybody wants to say that's not true, I'll explain the things that have been going on. And, it's really, really just horrible. We're going to be getting a new care team, but it's okay. It hasn't, hurt him to this point. But I needed some answers, and luckily they weren't the ones I thought, but they're, people stop, turning the radio on, it seems, as people age. So you really need to have an advocate. I couldn't find his primary care for about a week, with urgent messages in, 7 calls. And then finally, when things got a little more serious, the person I'd given the messages to broke down crying. So yeah, that's kind of how that place is working. So yeah.
Brian's been helpful.
And Brian, I just want to
Thank
thank
you,
Brian
Brian.
Celius. If it wasn't for Brian Celius, I'd probably be insane right now. He's behind the scenes like almost every day. And like he puts up with my like text messages that
All
are
the
like
time.
300 miles long, because I'm just spewing, right? From all of these experiences. I've never been involved in the healthcare system. I just figured doctors just want to fix everybody and keep fixing them until they can't fix them. And, and that's all they want to do. They get up in the morning and they have this like little group of patients, I'm learning they have like 1 million, right? And they just think about them all the time, right? In my mind, I think about Rinpoche all the time, but they have 100 patients, right? So I'm making phone calls, and there's like other emergencies going on. So I understand it as well, but you really need to have this strong advocate, and also some people with knowledge around to know what to advocate for. That's the other part, and that's why Brian's been incredibly helpful, because I can go to the doctor and go, I looked at his lab, and usually that indicates this, and if I'm wrong, you can tell me otherwise, but and in the background, Brian's read all the labs and told me what to ask for. So, now that with my charts, no one can hide. No one can we have every single lab that there is to have whenever they pull them. So if there's any indicators of anything, and we're able to kind of even really tighten his care up even more. With things that they may miss that seem like kind of sideline issues to them because they're focusing on their specific area, but it all ties in holistically. And Brian's a DO, and that's what DOs do. And Brian's also a master of Chinese medicine. I don't know what the degree is called. So he's got a DO in Chinese medicine. So and just pump me up a little, Brian. And I mean it. Brian's cared for Rinpoche since the early 90s, 95, 6, something. He helped with the diagnosis, helped with the diabetes, and helped with all the medicine. And it's just, Rinpoche calls him Medicine Buddha behind the scenes. So we just, want to say thank you to those who are really, really putting in the effort. And everyone who's here on Zoom every Sunday makes Rinpoche have a reason to stay with us. And he's not giving up, I'll tell you that. So whatever power that gives us for more time with him is really incredible. So he said to me, no. And he also said to me, now we can take this for whatever it means. Maybe it meant that day, but he said that this isn't going to be the major this isn't a catastrophic time, is what he said to me. Like this time isn't, is bad, you know, the worst or something like that. So whatever that means. Because I told him to tell me, like, I've got to know when this is really close. And he said it's not. So, so it's wonderful that we had today. And we got to hear Shanchu Wo's letter. How many sentient beings in their lifetime even have heard of that letter, read that letter, have any idea what that letter is even talking about, right? Like anyone could read it. Like, and we kind of know what that's talking about, and we kind of know what, you know, it means, and what the answers that Atisha gave, not just the letter, but the answers and what's right and what's wrong because of Rinpoche's teaching. So anyway, any questions? I think that's all of my emotion for Sunday. And again, Stasha, I just want to rejoice in the faith that you had in the Dharma. And also the power of the Dharma and prayer. Shambha's been suffering for a long time. Stasha called this morning and couldn't take it anymore. And Shambha was screaming in the background in pain. And we chanted mantras in her ear, and she passed within a couple of hours. We did Tara, Palden Lama, and Kala Chakra, and I made a prayer for this to end with the Palden Lama mantra. I'm not trying to say I have some special power. I'm just telling experiences that are happening. And I told Rinpoche, and she passed. Naturally. So thank you, Stasha, for allowing her to complete her karma. If anyone who doesn't know, it was our dog for a lot of years, 10 years, a long time. And, you know, Stasha has a wonderful, wonderful partner, Buck, who became Shambha's dad, and loved her as much as I would. So I am just so grateful for, you know, for that also. So I just want to say thank you to you, Stasha. Thank you to Buck. A lot of the Dharma practitioners here have seen Shambha. She used to come to the center sometimes. And you saw her here at our house when we did the makeshift teaching. Rinpoche gave her a big blessing when I carried her onto the porch. And then Rinpoche blessed her last year. So Shambha had a lot of teachings and a lot of teachers around her. She met Gompo, Geshe Gompo, and she got to drink water from the Dalai Lama's mouth before she passed. So, yes. Yeah, it's a long story, but we had a little, that she has a little, mine dried up. So I can't do much for everyone. I had it all special and wrapped in a kata, and I went to look at it. Mine dried up. So I just used the air as the blessing, but it was wonderful that you could do that. So that's it. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Khensur Rinpoche. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah. Okay.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice rest of your week. Have a good rest of your week, everyone.